So now we're getting closer. Now to really kick this up, let's apply the noise. We'll apply more or less the same noise to the fire intensity. So basically, we'll just try. We'll start with all the same settings, more or less. Same thing here. Same thing here. Um, we're not going to see too much going on with this. I'll do the same amplitude here. Let's see what that gets us real quick. Again, this is for the fire intensity itself. So looking to just get some general changes here and there. The real work will begin on the trying to get the fire color noise to look just right. That's where a lot of this is going to come from. But let's see what we get from this first. All right, so you can see the differences here now. It's a subtle change, but you can see, like, especially up here, it's like here it was all bright, and then on this it's like this remained bright, but these parts kind of dropped out a little bit. A lot of like small subtle things will add up to something great, especially when you see the frames moving, you'll see those kind of changes flowing through it. But also, again, it's the fire temperature though that's going to be the main thing here with these noises. So once again, enable scale field times noise. For this, I would say right off the bat, I would say double the frequency on that guy. Everything else can be the same, but we want lots of very small temperature differences here. So we'll make this pretty rough. We'll use our favorite little gradient warp guy again to make things kind of a little bubbly. And again, we'll stick with that kind of gain that we've been seeing before. And also, in fact, let's start with the 1.3 that we've been using everywhere else also. So let's see what we get here. And I'm gonna pause it here and we'll come back in a second. All right, now we're really getting somewhere. So this is with the noise, that high frequency noise applied. And remember, this is where it started from. It's kind of bubbly, like whatever. And now look where it is. Pretty great. We can see, look at all this little, all these little bubbles and hot spots, and look how, I mean, you can just see it's very interesting. Everywhere has all this variation where it had none before. It's getting a little darker, as you're seeing, so we might want to compensate for that a little bit, but otherwise it's looking really nice. One way that I would like to try to compensate for that is, let's try more or less, let's go like, let's just like add 1 to this. I feel like let's try that. Or you know what? That's not keeping with what I've been telling you to do. Let's just double it. Double it to 1.3 to 2.5. I know it's not exactly double, but see me. That's more or less right. Cool. Let's see what that looks like. That might be too much, but let's just see. I'm just hoping that maybe we can make some of these bright spots even brighter, even more yellow, more hot. That might be really cool. We can always put it back. Let's see what we get. All right, so greatly increasing the scale of the temperature noise, really, boom, really kicked this up quite a bit. I do like the contrast that we're getting from that, but I liked the more subtle variation from before. I'd say the best way to split difference here would be, and also considering how late in the explosion this is, I would expect it to be redder like this at this point, and not probably so yellow at this point. So what I would say here, instead of changing this anymore, I'd actually go back to the shape and say, maybe bring the whole thing down in terms of how intense it is. So remember, by making that source range higher, we're going to bring the color down, meaning not darker, but move it more towards the red side of the black body radiation spectrum. So hopefully by moving that to 32, we'll be able to pull back, especially these hotspots here, and start to see it kind of move back towards this. So there we go. So we're getting back to, see, that's what I want. I want the yellow dots. I want these yellow dots in here. We get a wider spectrum as opposed to this, which was kind of just all red. Now here, we get down to red sometimes, but we still have this kind of yellow and orange look here. Well, I'm still a little concerned that this might be too hot for this late in the explosion. But let's just leave this here for now. What we'll probably end up doing is we'll scroll to an earlier frame when it's first exploding and making sure that that's not getting totally blown out, which I suspect it will be. But let's just stick with this for a minute, and let's take a look when it's done rendering. All right, so we finished. And honestly, I would say I don't like this as much as I thought I was going to. From here before, I still really like the way this would transition into this, and we have all these little blobs and things. And then here I thought maybe we were getting that still, but looking at this, bringing the temperature back down again, I don't know, these areas seem kind of flat to me, again, compared to this, where it has more shape to it. So I'm actually going to say, let's just go all the way back to that and maybe heighten it a little bit. So, as I feared, maybe this was too much. Putting it all up to 2.5 from 1.3 is too much. So let's just go to 1.5 across the board on this guy, see what we get from that. And at the same time, let's restore where this was, which was 16. So let's just see what that is. And we'll probably be good with that. Let's see what we get. And here's the result. And that is much more back in keeping with this. This was the one that I liked from before. Now it's just somewhat brighter. And just is where we had gotten to, which, whatever. This looks better, much better shape on this one. So, yeah, so we overdid it. And that's what's nice about doing those big leaps ahead. Well, we can always go back. So there we go. So that is, I think we'll keep that as our noisy thing. So again, we just got lots of nice detail all over the place. I'm a little concerned mostly just about how bright it is in this frame. It might be fine. Let's take a look real quick to see, let's see maybe what the one of these earlier frames look like. In particular, back here on 12, if you recall, well, let's just let's turn this guy back on again real quick. So this is back here is when it's this like incandescent, it's this very small explosion. It's probably never going to have hotter spots than it does there. So this is a good candidate for just turning this thing back on real quick. I just want to see what we see here. I want to see how hot that ends up being. So it's going to refresh it. That's not actually the most current thing. And there it goes. So that's not so bad. It's bright, but yeah, it would be bright at the very beginning of it. Even earlier would be something like that. Again, it's hesitating because it's got to read, these big cache files off of the disk. And again, it's bright, but it should be bright. If you look at reference and things like that, yeah, it'll be burn out kind of. It'll top out the colors there. So that's okay. And it quickly moves down back away from that pure whiteness, it seems, as we move along this thing. So that seems okay to me. And again, we'll tweak some of that in comp as well. Great. So let that stew for a second. But so this is pretty good. So this is, again, nice little details all over the place. We got our lighting, we got our smoke noise, our color or our temperature, color noise. I mean, just look at from where we were to where we are now. I mean, that's just so much better already.